Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming to our meeting today. I'm going to call it to order. The meeting is being held in compliance with the Open Public Meeting Act and is in the open meeting and open to the media and public. Notices were duly posted, and the meeting was advertised in the Hunter County Democrat and Courier News. Formal action may be taken. Can we get a roll call vote?
Mrs. Cassidy.
Here.
Mrs. Fiore.
Here.
Mr. Lopes.
Here.
Mrs. Menser.
Here.
Mr. Pieros. Here. Mrs. Strad.
Here.
Mrs. Ryan.
Here.
Mrs. Pinto.
Here.
Mr. Russo.
Here. Okay, flag salute.
Engage in a strategic planning process. As you may know, we completed our 5-year strategic plan at the end of last school year, 2025. And this year, we're going to be engaging in strategic planning to set goals for the district for the next 3 to 5 years. We have individuals that help us with this process, so I'd like to invite Kathy Poirier and Marianne Friedman from the New Jersey School Boards Association up to the podium to talk about their strategic planning process and how we'll move forward potentially in the future. So Kathy, welcome.
All right, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you for having us. Well, I'll introduce myself. I know I've met some of you, but not all of you. I'm Kathy Poirier. I am the field service representative for Hunterdon and Somerset counties. I'm new to New Jersey School Boards. I just started in September, and I have Marianne Friedman with me, who is not new to New Jersey School Boards Association. She's been a part of it.
old.
How long have you been with the organization?
16 years.
16 years. And we're here together because it's likely that we would be helping to facilitate your strategic plan together if you choose to use New Jersey School Boards Association. But I have met some of you through the County School Boards Association. I was a board member for almost 9 years and a board president for almost 6 years in Delaware Township, which is also a Hunterdon Central Ascending District. And more than working in Hunterdon County is my home. I'm raising my family here, and I'm a parent, like a lot of you. I have children in our public schools. So I have a vested interest in wanting all of our schools to be good, just like you do. So we're going to go through a little bit about our process, and then we'll open it up to any questions you have for us. So this is just what we're going to be talking about tonight. What is strategic planning, advantages, how to be part of the process, and then again, we'll take any questions that you have. So strategic planning is creating an organization-wide vision that directs, motivates, and inspires members of the educational community to work together for the common good, which are your students, your children of your community, their achievement, their academic achievement, their educational needs, their extracurriculars, all the good things that you do in your school. What are some advantages of strategic planning? It helps the board to be proactive. As Marianne has said in one of her past presentations, what she's seen over the past 10 years is boards being reactive because of DOE mandates and things coming down to you. Strategic planning helps you to be proactive. We're a separate entity from the DOE. We support boards. We provide training. We provide, ethics trainings and support for your superintendents, your boards, and your VA, so that you can be effective and successful for your students. As strategic planning is creative and innovative, we take your ideas and we turn them into a larger plan. It's a process that's flexible, so what will happen is your administration will come up with action plans based on the goals that you choose. And if a year or two from now, your administration or your board decides those goals aren't working or something new comes up, for example, if you did your strategic plan 3 years ago, AI probably wasn't part of your strategic plan back then, but that's something new that has come up that is changing education. So we have a process where you could address your action items, and if you need to change them, that's okay. It provides a forum of participation for a complete cross-section of the community. So you could have, your mayor, police chief, student, teacher, parent, all sitting together with an equal voice in the process, which is really nice. It creates an ongoing cycle of planning, assessment, and decision-making. So you'll see that through your goal setting. And then we actually have a new way of tracking that process, which we'll get to in a couple of slides. It optimizes limited resources, which is very, very important, especially in Hunterdon County, where we wait for those state aid numbers every year to see, what kind of resources we're going to have for our schools and our students. And it increases the communication. Dr. Hart would give an update every year about the status of your strategic plan and what's been accomplished. You'll see items on your board agendas, and your public will be able to see where you are and how you are achieving the items that you identify in your plan. So again, just some more advantages: provides a clear focus on decision making, highlights the importance of good information for decision making, and creates a district-wide vision and mission that directs, motivates, and inspires working together for the common good, again, your children. So why plan? Strategic planning really creates an umbrella that you'll use to pull your goals from, and all the other goals that your district staff will use, and we'll get to that in a couple more slides. But some reasons maybe is your school enrollment changing, or are you projected to have your enrollment increase, or is your enrollment declining? Is the makeup of your school population changing? Are there more people in your community who don't have children in school? Do you have a population that's older and more of your population does not have children in the school? Would you benefit from a roadmap for the district's future? The strategic planning, it really is a 3 to 5 year plan on the direction that your school is going to go, and it gives you that roadmap that you can use to help you get there. Again, some more reasons for planning: are there changes in family structure in your community? Is the economic structure of your community changing? Are the educational levels of your community changing? Is there competition for your public schools? And is limited funding impacting your programs and services? And again, as Dr. Hart stated earlier, if you have a strategic plan that's expired or expiring, that's when you want to create a new strategic plan. So if you answered yes to any of those questions, then yes, you want to look into strategic planning. This is our waterfall effect of the strategic plan. So the strategic plan is really your overarching goals and objectives for your school districts. And from that, over the next year or so, say like every year, you pull a goal from the strategic plan for your district goals. Your board goals should support the district goals. And then from there, your staff will take those to help set their administrators' goals, your building goals, your department goals, your teacher and classroom goals, your student goals. All of that ties into student achievement, their educational and their academic needs. Everything you do in a school ties into that. Even if you have a facilities goal, you want to create, a safe, healthy environment so your students have a nice building to learn and so they can sit and be comfortable and learn. Everything you do in a school ties into student achievement. So the components of our strategic planning: the commitment of the Board of Education is on the bottom and also on the side. And that is really the board's commitment that they are inviting the community in, that they're going to listen to what they say and have them be part of the process for the entire time. So the first meeting, and you wanted information on the 3 R's. So our 3 R's program is 3 meetings. The first meeting is reflect. So that's about a 2-hour meeting. Dr. Hart would put together a state of the school's speech for your community and your board, and that would give everybody information. We'll talk about strengths and challenges, and then Mary Ann and I together will divide everybody up into groups, and we do this randomly because we want a diversity of thought and experiences in each group of people. So we don't want everybody that comes in and our friends sitting at the table. We want people to have a diverse group at their table that they're working with so they can hear everybody's perspectives in your community. So what we ask them to do is come up with strengths and challenges of your school district, and we try to get them to identify 10. If they don't identify 10, that's okay, but we aim for 10. And then at the end of the night, once everybody's identified their strengths and challenges, we invite the groups to come up and talk to the larger group about what they are and see what kind of consensus that we can get if there's similarities. And we use that to build on our second meeting. So at the end of your first meeting, reflect. What Mary Ann and I will do is we'll go back, we'll write everything up, write all the outcomes of the meeting, we'll send them to your board president, Dr. Hart, and your BA, and then you can send them to the rest of your board. You can post them on your website. That way you'll have them. If someone couldn't make the first meeting, they'll have them for the second meeting, so they could join in, jump in, wherever you are. Your community is invited to jump into whatever meeting they make. The second meeting is vision and initiatives. So in that meeting, we take the strengths and challenges and we ask people to imagine if those challenges were overcome. What kind of initiatives would that take? What would that look like? And also to create a vision for your school. So, and again, we break up into small groups and everybody works together on that. And then again, we'll take that, we'll write up all the outcomes, we'll get those to you within a couple of days. You can post them on your website, send them out to your community. And then we use that for the third meeting, recalibrate, where we'll come up with goals. And Marianne has referred to this one as strategic planning gone wild, because you can come in, your goal areas will be set up at each table, and you're free to work on any goal area that you want to come up with goal setting for your district. So at that meeting, that's where we'll really come up with the goals and what people would like to see as goals for your school district. So after that, Dr. Hart takes those goals, and with his administrative team, he would come up with action plans and action items for those goals. So this is like a 3-month process for the meetings, and then maybe a 1 to 3 month process for creating the action items. Then that comes back to Marianne and I, we write it all up, we come back and present it to your board. So that's the process. Do you want to add anything in? Marianne has been through many strategic plans. So we have a new feature, which is exciting. And I actually think we may be the first board that we're presenting it to. But we have a dashboard for our website now. It demonstrates your progress towards the achievement of planning goals. So it's a really great way to be transparent with your community. They can look on your website, you can send it out, and they can see, oh, here's where there are these goals that I went to these meetings and helped create. So that's what it looks like. What your board would do is designate a person to sign in and update the goals. And this is, again, what it looks like. This is just an example of what it could look like. But you'll type your goal in, you can create a new goal, but from those, overarching strategic plan goals, you would type in your specific goal and your comments about your progress towards it. And this is just another example of, how you would reflect the measurability of the goals that you set. So in this case, they wanted to increase the representation of students in advanced courses, and you can see how they put in. Again, this is just an example. They put in, okay, this much more percentage of students are taking advanced courses this year. So you could do something like that. Like, you always want your goals to be measurable. This provides you with a very good way to make sure your goals are measured over time. So who can participate in strategic planning? Everybody. We help you. We will send you invitations and templates to send out to your community. But obviously, board members, everybody on your board is invited to come. Parents, past, present, and future parents. So parents are their students' #1 and best advocate. Their voice is very, very critical to the process. So, invite parents of students that aren't even in your school yet. If you have a, mom's group or parents group of, babies and toddlers, invite them into the process. You're, of course, parents of your current students. And then if you're parents of students that are in high school or even beyond, they can probably offer you a really good perspective because they have that high school experience. And they know, what, here are some things that I wish, was available, or here are some things that worked really well to help students succeed in high school. Obviously, your staff and administration is very critical to the process. Your teachers, you want your teacher's voice at the table. Students, invite your students. Your 8th graders may want have ideas of something they'd like to leave behind. Invite your K to 8. So in whatever way is appropriate for the little ones to participate, all the students are welcome. And again, invite high school students to come back. Community members, a seniors group, your town council, your mayor, business owners, everybody's invited. And it's nice because everybody sits, and again, they all have that equal voice in the process. Student voice, again, student voice is already there. It's not something we give, it's something we honor, and we listen to them. So we want the students to come and talk to their teachers about what it's like learning in your school, and talk to your board members. and create something together that gives them agency in their educational experience. So how can you participate? Ways to participate, you can attend and actively participate in all 3 of the meetings, or 1 meeting, or 2 meetings. You can, again, everybody can jump in to any meeting they want. So attend as many. If you can only attend 1, that's okay. If you can attend all 3, that's great. But we want people to participate to the extent that they're able to. You could become involved in your schools, and then again, attend board meetings where we'll be hearing updates and progress on achieving the strategic plan goals. Okay. Any questions from the board about our process?
I have a quick question about that website. That's
Sure.
like a link that you can put on our website?
Yeah, so it will be like, it's not live yet, but yes, it would be a link that you could put and display right there. Yeah, it will go on their website, so or on your website. And then somebody from your board or administration would be tasked with logging in and updating it.
I just have a question.
Yeah, of
So
course.
the planning meetings that we invite community members, teachers, students
Yeah.
to are separate from board meetings?
Yeah, so what we usually recommend you do is advertise them as a board meeting, because if you have all your board members show up, it would be a quorum. No action will be taken. Obviously, your board president would just open the meeting and close the meeting, and we'd go about our strategic planning process. But yeah, so you all can be together. It's totally fine.
What's the whole timeline from board commitment to kind of roll it all out? What do you looking at?
So probably about 3 to 4 months. And again, the meetings are about 2 hours each, 1 meeting a month, and then time to develop the action plan and put it all together into a tangible plan for you.
I have a question. It's also at the material presented ahead of time. When you had a section of committees, you had something called the State of School Committee, State of Community Committee, the Planning Council, and Action Plan Committees.
So that would be our traditional strategic planning, which we have as traditional strategic planning, and then the 3 Rs. The 3 Rs is the 3 meetings over 3 months. The traditional is, Mary Ann can probably speak to that a little better, she's more experienced with that.
Hi, so the traditional plan usually takes 6 to 9 months to do, and it's much more involved. So you would have committees at the beginning to develop a state of the schools report and a state of the community report. In the 3 Rs process, the superintendent develops the state of the schools report. And then those groups would put together those reports, and they would be handed out at a weekend meeting. It involves people coming together Friday evening all night, and then Saturday all day. And then you would have the action plan teams, and anybody could be a part of the action plan teams developing those. And then they're presented to that final process. We present that final plan just like we would with the 3 Rs. The problem that we had and boards were having was getting people to be able to commit to a full Friday night and an all-day Saturday. And it really does, that process really does work best if you have people there for the full Friday night and Saturday. So we came up with this plan because we thought it would be easier for boards to get people to attend. They don't have to attend all 3. They can attend 1 or 2. They can certainly commit to all 3, and we really appreciate that as well. And it's also a shorter time frame. Also, the action plans really do belong in the hands of the superintendent, because that's the how he or she is going to get you to the what the community and the board and the staff put together as the goal areas and the objectives. So that's where that's a little bit different. The traditional plan was the one that we started with, I don't even know how many years ago. I've been around for 16, and they were doing it well before that, because I was on my board for 9 years, and we used it 3 times during that 9 years, because we were able to get ours done in a shorter period of time. So that goes back at least 25 years. But most of the boards are doing the 3 Rs at this point, because it's shorter, it gets done the work that you need to get done to be able to have that forward-thinking plan, and you get those action plans and everything all put together within about 5 months, and that way you're off and running. And that's what most boards want to do, is they want to get it done so that they can move forward. But it is very intentional, and it is very strategic. No pun intended.
Second follow-up. So the role of the board, we kind of high level, we attend the meetings and so on, provide input. In the 3R plans, any other role that you see the board doing, or is it just part of the community, a part of the 3 meetings?
Right, part of the 3 meetings. Obviously, you would be a part of developing those goals. At the end of the second meeting, after that visioning and initiatives exercise, then we'll come to consensus points on that, and that will really drive us to 3 to 5 goal areas that everybody agrees to, including the superintendent and the board members. We're gonna look for consensus on that. And then that's the what. Then that all comes together in that 3rd meeting. And so that's the what it is you all want to see, your community members and students and parents and teachers and faculty, staff. That's what everybody's looking to have done. So that's the what. And then the superintendent puts together the action plans, just like the superintendent puts together your action plans for your district goals. That's the how part. The action plans are the how for the strategic plan. So, but you would then approve all of that at the end.
So when we come out and present it to you, your full board would approve it. And then you're picking goals every year. You're going to choose, collaboratively with your superintendent, your district goals, most likely from your strategic plan. Any other questions? All right, well, it was great to see everybody. Thank you again for having us. Any questions, feel free to follow up and reach out to us anytime.
Thank you for
Thank
coming.
Thank you so much. Have a happy holiday season.
Thank you.
Good night, take care.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night. So we had planned, I emailed the board earlier, we had planned for 2 presentations tonight. I told you that unfortunately Judith Wilson wasn't able to be here tonight. So we can, have a discussion now at a later date about how we want to move forward. If we want to invite her in some capacity to talk with us about strategic planning and how we want to move forward. But that concludes my superintendent's report, unless we want to have a conversation about moving forward with strategic planning in one direction or another.
Thank you. So one of the things Dr. Hart talked about with me a while ago when we realized Judith can come was we were going to vote on which vendor to use on January 20th. Do we invite Judy on January 7th, right after the reorg, so she can present before the 20th? Is this something to consider that we want to get her before we actually vote? Because reorg meetings usually pretty quick. So something we could consider, just inviting her so we can get a second presentation. So maybe you guys are okay with that? Okay.
I'll talk with her, find out if she's available. I think number one, that's first and foremost, folks' calendars fill up. If not, we can talk about alternatives if she wants to meet with the committee virtually, and then we see if we want to move her forward in some way, shape, or form. And then decide how we want to go from there.
Okay.
Sound good? All right, I'll talk with her.
So try and get her, so rather than just we have 2 to choose from, just consider this one. All right, thanks, Dr.
Yeah.
All right, so the next item is the public forum. It is limited to items that are on the agenda. If you'd like to speak, please come up, state your name and town that you're from, and you have 3 minutes allocated to speak. Okay, we'll move on. Okay, we received 5 email correspondences. They are with the board secretary on record, so we have those stored. Our next item are going to be board actions. The first one is the approval of administrative reports. We have 4 items, 101 through 104. Can I get a motion and then also a second on those 4 items?
I'll move, Ellen.
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
Mrs. Cassidy,
Yes.
Mrs. Fiore,
Yes.
Mr. Lopes,
Yes.
Mrs. Menzer,
Yes.
Mr. Pieros.
Yes.
Mrs. Rad,
Yes.
Mrs. Ryan,
Yes.
Ms. DePinto,
Yes.
Mr. Rizzo.
Yes.
Passes.
Next item is approval of minutes. We have two items, 201 through 202. Can I get a motion and then also second those two items? And a second?
Yeah.
Any discussion? Okay, Mr. Bonner?
Mrs. Cassidy,
Yes.
Mrs. Fury,
Yes.
Mr. Lopes,
Yes.
Mrs. Menzer,
Abstain.
Mr. Pieros,
Yes.
Mrs. Rad,
Yes.
Mrs. Ryan,
Yes.
Mrs. DePinto,
Yes.
Mr. Rizzo.
Yes.
Passes.
Next item is finance and committees, finance and facilities. We have 10 items to move. We're not going to have a committee report this month. We're meeting on December 17th, so we'll have a committee report at our next meeting. Can I get a motion and a second to move items 301 through 310?
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussions? Okay, Mr. Bonner?
Mrs. Cassidy,
Yes.
Mrs. Fury,
Yes.
Mr. Lopes,
Yes.
Mrs. Menzer,
Yes.
Mr. Pieros,
Yes.
Mrs. Rad,
Yes.
Mrs. Ryan,
Yes.
Mrs. DePinto,
Yes.
Mr. Rizzo.
Yes.
Passes.
Next item is our Ed Tech committee report. We will have a committee report on that. But prior to do so, we have two items to move, 401 through 402. Can I get a motion and a second on those two items?
Motion.
Second.
Okay.
The Ed Tech Committee met on November 17th. The first item we discussed was the Teacher Academy catalog. Dr. Brown shared the Teacher Academy catalog along with new software to display these professional development sessions for teachers. This software has the ability to show classes filtered by subject area and also tracks teachers' progress towards credits. Next, we had a quarterly technology update. Mr. Belsky gave an update on all technology department initiatives that have occurred since our last tech report. Projects include audio system for TBS cafeteria, wireless access points for Hollenbrook School classrooms, updates on iPads, Chromebooks and servers, a website refresh, security enhancements for staff computers, software renewals for student accounts, and state testing and reporting portals. Upcoming projects include network circuit upgrades for White House School and Three Bridges, smartboard replacements now that the referendum has passed, intercoms, and network upgrades that are E-rate eligible. Mr. Belsky is working on budgeting for the technology department for 26-27 school year, and he mentioned that he is seeing increases in cost for software as a service platforms, so he is evaluating the value each platform brings to the district. Next, we talked about the AI Working Committee. Dr. Hart shared that the AI Working Committee had an initial meeting to set goals and start collecting data. 5 RMS students will be included on the AI Working Committee to capture student feedback. More updates to come as this committee works towards best practices and/or policy recommendations for the board. Next, the NJSLA 2025 comparison. Dr. Brown and Ms. Pouch researched surrounding districts' NJSLA scores to compare our district's performance with similar districts. The committee asked to see this data several years ago because comparing Reddington to the state average did not give a full picture of how our students are performing amongst peers in Hunterdon County and surrounding districts. Overall, our district is in line with surrounding districts in ELA, math, and science. Next, we talked about the NJSLA adaptive field test. The field test assessments have been successfully completed at HBS and RMS. This was a trial for the new testing in the spring. Thank you to all of those who helped, as there was not much notice given or training provided by the state. Lastly, we did a follow-up for grade 3 and grade 8. Following up from the October board meeting, Dr. Hart and the curriculum supervisors put together a presentation for the committee to answer board members' questions that were asked during the board meeting. Presentation included additional data such as demographics, including MLs, special ed, economically disadvantaged subgroups, longitudinal achievement by grade and cohort, and iReady growth data, and intervention dismissal rates. Lastly, we We scheduled our next meeting for December 18, and the agenda items are updated field trips, fundraisers, and other typical agenda items.
Any discussion?
Mrs. Cassidy,
Yes.
Mrs. Fiore,
Yes.
Mr. Lopes,
Yes.
Mrs. Menzer,
Yes.
Mr. Fierros. Yes. Mrs. Rad,
Yes.
Mrs. Ryan,
Yes.
Mrs. DePinto,
Yes.
Mr. Rosa.
Yes.
Passes.
Okay. Our next item is Personnel Committee report. We have 7 items to move, 501 through 57. Can I get a motion and a second on these 7 items?
I'll move.
Captain, second. Justina?
So the committee met yesterday. Dr. Hart reported that staffing has remained fairly stable throughout the school year. White House School, a speech therapist resigned to take a position in a more therapeutic hospital setting. The position has since been filled. There were no changes at TBS or Hollenbrook. RMS, a custodian, resigned and the position will not be filled at this time. Preschool, there were no changes. Paraprofessionals, we are fully staffed. FMLA, we have 2 positions that will need to be filled. Transportation is also fully staffed. In regards to the custodian that resigned, we have decided to leave the position unfilled at this time and we'll continue evaluating options. Dr. Hart then shared a news article about the RMS students who will serve as liaisons to the board. The students did a wonderful job speaking at the last board meeting. We discussed how frequently they should attend meetings and suggested having them participate approximately 3 to 4 times per year. Dr. Hart will speak with Mr. Daly and report back to us. We then we reviewed recent teaching staff moves at district schools to better understand motivation for position changes. It's a personnel matter that will be discussed in executive session. Our next meeting is set for January 14th at 8:30 a.m. and the agenda items are your typical agenda items such as substitute hires, long-term substitute hires, and stipend payments.
Thank you, Justina. Any comments?
I just want to let the board know that I was able to speak to Mr. Daly today for a couple of minutes about the students. We talked about student expectations coming to the board, what they wanted to get out of their experience reporting to the board, as well as how frequently students should come to board meetings. We've got a great plan. We came up with a good plan. He's got some good ideas. We talked about the potential of it, bringing the students back January for a regular meeting, March, and then June. And the March and June dates coincide really with the end of the winter sports season and then the end of the spring sports season as well. So potential in January, March. I think maybe they might be interested in the budget. A lot of them do civics projects about the budget, and then June for the end of the school year. So if anybody has any thoughts, that was our initial conversation today. But they enjoyed it. And we also discussed a selection or a piece going into Mr. Charleston's RMS Express newsletter, where the students might write a report about what they learned at the board meeting as well.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other comments?
Mrs. Cassidy,
Yes.
Mrs. Fiore,
Yes.
Mr. Lopes,
Yes.
Mrs. Menzer,
Yes.
Mr. Fierros. Yes. Mrs. Rad,
Yes.
Mrs. Ryan,
Yes.
Mrs. DePinto,
Yes.
Mr. Rosa.
Yes.
Passes.
Next item is policy and communication. We will have a committee report, but prior to that, we do have 2 items, 601 through 602. Can I get a motion and a second on those items?
I'll move.
Second.
The Policy and Communications Committee met on November 24th. The first thing that we discussed were policy updates. Dr. Hart provided the updates he made based on the committee's previous recommendations on the following policies. Policy 2330 homework. Policy was updated to include the independent reading practice log used in grades 3 to 8 to monitor student reading practices and create a reading connection between home and school. Policy 2340 field trips. Policy was updated to further define that field trips shall be defined as any journey by a group of pupils away from the school premises under the supervision of a teacher, which is an integral part of an approved course of study or part of a school celebration, milestone, or competition. It also included that parents will be notified when charter buses are being used. The committee also discussed if the number of field trips should be adjusted due to the increase in cost to the district. This will be revisited by administration and discussed in committee. Policy 2412, home instruction due to health condition, no update. Policy 2481 covers other conditions. Policy 2414, programs and services for students in high poverty and in high need school districts. This is a mandated policy from Strauss-Esme. Our policy is from 2006. Strauss has a more recent version, but it is from 2011, which is still outdated, but more updated than what we have. We will place this on the agenda and keep an eye out for future updates. Policy 2430, co-curricular activities, updated to include kindergarten through 8th grade, since the previous version only mentioned grades 6 through 8. Also included situations where an outside vendor may provide the co-curricular opportunity, for example, YMCA programs. We also added that co-curricular programs shall only be available to students enrolled in the district. Policy 2440, summer school, added this may include assignments for summer reading, grades 6 through 8, and students moving into an advanced or honors math class to the policy, and also changed the name to summer school and programs to capture the policy for ease of reference. Policy 2460.8, special education, still required and no updates were needed. Policy 2551, musical instruments. We updated this policy to reflect our current practices by stating the Board of Education shall not be obligated to purchase and maintain a supply of musical instruments for all pupils enrolled in the instrumental music program. The Board of Education will purchase and maintain a supply of instruments for students who meet a specific threshold on the free reduced lunch list. The board also maintains a supply of larger instruments for student loans at no cost to the parent. Policy 2560, live animals in school. There is no policy update needed, just changes to the regulation. We then discussed the Freedom to Read Act and the related policies. Strauss-Esme provided updates to us. Policy 2535, library materials, which was developed in time for the effective date of December 9th for the Freedom to Read Act. Dr. Hart attended a virtual seminar regarding these policies to gain as much information as possible in preparation for our meeting. The committee had a detailed discussion about the various points in the new policy and regulation. The regulation provides an outline for review committee selection, which now includes a superintendent and a representative selected by the board. It also states that the challenged books shall remain on the shelf until the final decision is made. The Board of Education shall review the review committee's report and have a public vote on whether the library material is to be removed from the school library or limited in use. Some committee members feel the policy and/or regulation needs to include a statement about considering community taste in regards to age-inappropriate sexually explicit content. It was mentioned that other districts have statements that reference not allowing obscene materials in accordance with the New Jersey Revised Statute 2C 34-3. Some committee members feel the policy should remain exactly as is and do not wish to make any additions or subtractions to it to avoid any difficulties in regard to possible litigation. They feel that mentioning obscenity clauses or any deviation to the recommended model policy will place the district at risk. One committee member expressed concerns about some of our library books containing sexually explicit content and read a passage from one of those books. This committee member also recommended that due to item number 2 under library material curation, which states the Board of Education, in consultation with school library staff members, shall have discretion in selecting, purchasing, or acquiring library material for inclusion in the school library. We can add guidelines for the librarian to aid her and her staff in the curation process to ensure student safety. Dr. Hart will consult with the librarian and gather her input and get back to us. Dr. Hart highlighted that the district has already taken steps at the recommendation of the Ed Tech Committee to ensure parents can see what books their children are reading. This year, the district sent out a letter to parents listing books in our library that may be sensitive in nature, designated for mature readers at the 9 to 12 grade level. The district also updated its library software, which now has a parent login for parents to have easy access to the books their children are checking out. The district also implemented an independent reading practice log for grades 3 to 8 to monitor student reading practices and create a reading connection between home and school. This new policy and regulation may require a full board discussion. Policy and Regulation 2530, resource materials, updated to remove references to library and library materials since those now will live in Policy 2535. Policy and Regulation 2535, library material. These are mandated as the board is required by the act to develop and adopt a written policy and procedure to address the requirements of the Freedom to Read Act and the guidance. It is recommended we move forward with the first read of this policy and make changes as needed after board discussion. Policy and Regulation 9130, public complaints, updated to reflect policy 2535. We then reviewed the differences between textbooks, library materials, and resources. The committee reviewed the table provided by Dr. Hart to have a visual of the differences between resource, library, and textbooks, and which ones require board approval. The New Jersey Department of Education broadcast regarding Mahmoud, it was tabled until the next committee meeting. And our policy tracking document for review, the committee continues to work through their assigned series, prioritizing which policies require immediate attention. We are waiting for Strauss Esme to complete their audit of our manual for us to reference during our process. And agenda items, policy 2330, 2340, 2414, 2430, 2440, and 2551 are on the agenda. The Freedom to Read Act revisions, though, are not on the agenda, but up for board discussion.
Correct.
And our next meeting is Monday, December 22nd, 3:30.
Okay. All right, so I'm gonna open this up for discussions. I know there might be some of the items that were either on the agenda or up for discussion, so I'll open up those. Anyone would like to comment?
I would like to make a comment on policy 2330, the homework policy. I want to talk more about that number 8, the new policy that we created. I was wondering if we could bring it back up at tech, or is it something we should just talk about now? I don't feel it's doing what it's supposed to be doing. It's supposed to be tracking the kids, what they're reading, and parents are supposed to be going on Google and seeing what the kids are reading, but I don't think these are getting updated. So I don't think, my son's read 3 books, he only has 1 on there. So I was wondering if we could talk about it.
Any other comments on?
I also want to make a comment on 2330 homework on second revision, second review of the policy and the addition. I sent you a message. I feel like the inclusion of that very specific example of a type of homework in this policy is too specific, and that the policy otherwise is just general guidelines on how we envision homework and how it's used and applied in the district. And this seemed to be the only line item that was explicit about what was expected as homework. And that seems like it's tying our hands in the future for if it evolves or changes. I would like to recommend, I don't know if it would be a move to remove the addition to the policy.
So, because you're with that, like.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Paolo, is that your position as well for item number 8?
I don't want to remove it, I want to talk about it
Talk.
more. And I think we need to have something in place, but I don't think this works right now.
So, just by our policy works our bylaw. So, for everyone in the audience as well, I'll just give an update. So things go through first read and then second read. So right now, this policy, the homework policy is up for first read. So if it passes first read, it then goes back to the committee, and they could modify it or not based on either public input or board member input. If the changes are editorial or just high level, it could go for second read. If there's anything substantive that needs to be changed, it has to go back to first read again anyway. So right now it's on the committee. If members do not want to approve it, you can approve it as first read, and if that line gets modified, it has to go through first read again next month anyway. Or we just go through it and say no on first read, it goes back to the committee either way. So if you don't feel comfortable, you want to remove that, you could just vote no on that policy, and it would just go back to the committee. Or if you vote yes and the committee decides to modify it, it's going to come to first read next month again, either way. So I don't know, Pam, if you have a preference, like your thoughts on it.
I said I would prefer that it's not ready in its current state to move forward, but I don't know if you want me to move to remove it.
It seems like I would really try.
No, that's fine. We can go back to
So if that's the case, if you guys can vote any way you like, I'm just gonna just give from a procedural perspective that if you think it's not ready and you want to go, you could vote yes on everything and you could vote no on 2330, and then it will just go back to committee and the committee will just do their committee work.
I just wanted to make a comment that I believe that reading log came out of a review committee that was formed, I think with teachers. Dr. Hart can kind of elaborate on that a little bit. And that was a compromise, so parents were notified and are aware of what their students are reading. So I don't see that it would be an issue to include it in the policy, especially since this was kind of the recommendation that the teachers came up with. So I think it should be utilized. I don't know if it's mandatory right now or not, but I think it's a great idea to have it part of the policy.
Any other thoughts on it? That's really the only change, right?
Yeah, just to be clear, I wasn't rejecting the reading log or its use or its implementation in the school. It was just, it felt like it was out of scope of the purpose of the policy. So it was too detailed. And as we're finding that if we want to change it at all, then we could be in conflict with our policy.
Or possibly change the wording back at committee.
I'd like to just make a comment. So in looking at the policy, I'm picking up on what Pam is commenting. The structure of all the other comments are more process oriented, and then number 8 is very specific. So 8 looks like the how rather than the what. And I feel like it's an overstep to have in a policy the how. I think the how is best left to the administration, and the policy should be the what we're trying to achieve as a board. So I'm aligned with where Pam is, that it's not appropriate in terms of the scope of writing a policy.
I mean, I think for me, the issue is that it's not being implemented correctly. So how do we make sure it is being implemented if it's not part of our policy?
Good luck.
Can I add one thing? I agree that there's a question that came to the board regarding implementation. I've talked with the administration and we're looking at collecting the data to find out how it's being used. I don't know, and I know that this was a question and it was something that was brought to the board and will come to the Ed Tech committee of the board. I've talked to only administration about it. I have not reached out to any of the teachers. We haven't talked to parents. We're looking for a way to try to collect the data to see how it's being used, to report that back to the Ed Tech committee of the board. What I do know is that the teachers in classrooms grades 3 through 8 have given it their best effort. This is part of their daily routines. I've seen it posted in classrooms to make sure students record their books in their logs. I know that there are reminders provided. I think that this is a mutual responsibility between the teachers and the kids. I just have to find out a little bit more from the teachers in terms of implementation. Now, don't forget too, it's also optional, right? So there's a little checkbox on the top of the log that allows the parent to say, no, I don't really need to see this on a regular basis. So we have to find out how many parents may have checked that box and, you know, how teachers are tracking it as well. So I just want to let you know that we're looking at collecting the data. In talking with the administration, I just want the board to please be patient. This is going to take time. Teachers' first priority is the students in front of them on a day-to-day basis and instruction. Monitoring and tracking this type of data is something that we will get for the board, I promise you, but please be patient, because if it's a teacher's choice between pulling a small group and doing some academic interventions or checking a reading log, I want them doing some academic interventions first, reading log second. So we'll get this to you. We're thinking probably in January to Ed Tech. But I know that there are questions about the data. I will report back. Fair enough? Yeah. I know that there was a question that came from somebody to collect the data.
Okay, so in regards to this policy, once again, when we go to vote on it, specifically for 2330, it seems like it's gonna go back to committee either way. And maybe that line stays the same, some people want it, maybe it changes. It's really up to, I guess it sounds like we're gonna have the committee redo it, and maybe it was a little early to bring it in, from what I'm gathering, right? See, Okay, so you guys can vote how you like, and with that, being said, any other comments before we get on?
Sorry, I just have a couple more questions. On the Freedom to Read Act.
Yep.
So I know we're not voting on it tonight, but I just have a couple of questions. So this policy will do away with the resource material policy, which I think is 2530.
Revise it,
Revise it.
not do away,
To pull
revise.
the library out of it.
Okay, and so it's quoted that the Board of Education, in consultation with school library staff members, shall have discretion in selecting, purchasing, or acquiring library material. Is that what will be within that policy? And how does that look? I mean, because, we've discussed this in the past, where library books end up in the library with donations, with fundraisers, the Scholastic Book Fair. How will the board be able to consult and have discretion in selecting or purchasing those?
I just have some, that's what I was hoping to be able to discuss as a full board tonight. I don't think it's where we would have eyes on every book, but we would set a guideline to help with curation process. So the only thing that I was, we were split in committee on whether or not we should add a statement to that section that you just read for curation, protecting the students against sexually explicit content. If there was some sort of statement that we could come up with as a board to include in the policy, I think it's necessary, and I was wondering how the whole board felt. I know in our sustainability policy, we do make a statement that the board wants to protect students, staff, and school visitors and community members from environmental harm, and will strive to eliminate the use of potentially toxic and harmful substances. And it goes on in that matter, and I feel like we have that included in policy for sustainability. I feel that we could have a policy, a statement included in this that just states how we're going to protect students from, I guess, sexually explicit content is where I was wondering how everyone felt.
And where we left in committee was what I imagined, and I haven't done it yet, was to go to the administration as well as the school librarians and almost get what they have in terms of a flow chart of how materials flow into the library, and where do we have processes where there are approvals from librarian recommendation to principal approvals, and then my approval, how purchase orders are generated, and create that flow chart to report back to you, because I know that things get in the library. I know I sign off on purchase orders, so do the principals, and I know the librarians use their professional judgment and recommendations to get books in the library. I just don't have a document to show you, so I was going to talk with them, coordinate on a document, and report back.
I'm just going to add something on this. Right, all these policies, not only that there's 3 policies that came in from Strauss-Esme, 2530, 2535, and 9130. 2535 is the new one about library materials. All 3 have regulations with them as well. Regulations are documents of how the administration will implement the policies. So the question always becomes what's in the policy versus what's in the regulation, and how do you merge the two? Whereas the regulation has to reflect what's in the policy. It can't do things outside the policy. Interestingly enough about these, the regulation for 2535 is mandatory, it's required. So that's going to be something that the board votes on as well. So there's the 3 policies, there's the mandatory 2535 regulation, and there's 2 other regulations that the board doesn't have to vote on. So we can do that as well. So when we look at this and we want to say, how do books get curated? Do we do a process? The board's allowed to do it based on the paragraph that Ellen read. The question is, do they do it, and what's the best way of doing it, how we do it, and so on. I think that just needs to be worked out, and I think that's what Dr. Hart was getting at.
Right.
So that's why it's not on the agenda. There's just some open questions on that. Like, how do we handle the curation for that point? Is it in the policy? Do we add a statement policy, or do we modify the regulation as well? So there's some ideas, and then Dr. Hart will work on that. I just want to mention that's like what's going to be voted on. So any questions on that, thoughts?
Justine, I'm sorry, I don't think we answered your second question, if I understand it correctly. The resource materials policy is not being abolished. The resource materials policy addressed library materials. that's all been carved out and is now created in the new library materials policy. So like these three policies all talk to each other. So as we create the new library materials policy, the public complaints policy as well as the resource materials policy have to be revised because the new library materials policy addresses library materials. And those no longer will address library materials.
So what is our timeline on figuring out how we know what books are flowing into the library? I mean, the minutes state that there's, books containing sexually explicit content and that a passage was read from one of those books. I don't know, I mean, we've discussed that Me, Earl, and the Dying Girl in the past. I don't know if that's the book that's being in reference to, or do we have more books in the library? So I'm just curious what our timeline is to make sure that these are not getting into the hands of our children in middle school.
Well, this comes up after our time. December 9th today is the law becomes into effect.
Yeah.
But I would imagine most school districts will not have policies on first or second reading within a few months. So
Yeah.
from a realistic perspective, is it 2-3 months from now? But by the time we work all this out, like, what do you think would be an appropriate time frame?
It's hard to say. I mean, I haven't even talked with the administration or the librarians about it. 2 months, I guess, February, January, late January, early February. I mean, I just need to know the expectation. I mean, if the expectation is to bring to the board ways in which books get into the library, I can do that relatively quickly. Then it's up to the board. We've talked in committee about this. What role is it of the boards, right? Once we have our process, It's going to be a very similar process that's been used. We can memorialize it. Then it's a matter of moving everything forward and improving it. I mean, the law's into effect right now. When it comes to books that are already in the library, I think we're talking about two different things. There's books that already exist. They're there. There's a process to have them removed. If that's what any interested person in our community wants to do. But we're also talking, I think, more significantly about how things get there in the first place.
And so, similar to the homework policy, this may not have been ready for first read, which is not the first read. That's why we have the policy committee. So at this point, it should just go back to the policy committee. Any board member has any questions, Justine or Pauline, will just send the policy committee chair an email, CC Dr. Hart and myself, and then they'll bring it up in the next policy committee. And then when it's ready for next read, it'll show up on the agenda. But for now, we should go through a committee process, go through the policy chair, send any questions, comments you have, and the committee will handle it. Okay.
So I'm sitting here listening to this and I'm incredibly frustrated. So we looked at this in policy as the minutes suggested. We vetted it, we talked it out, we moved it on to first read. It was supposed to be on the agenda tonight. And I got a call last week that it was being pulled from the agenda. And I have to say, that doesn't happen. We respect our committee members, we respect our committee members. What is our role if we decide to move it forward and then all of a sudden it's being thrown back to committee to discuss what? What are we supposed to discuss? The points that I made in committee were this is a mandated policy. The 2535 library materials is mandated from the state. Strauss Esme are our attorneys. We pay them to write policy for us. They wrote this policy. Dr. Hart recommended this policy. It came to us and we said, okay, if 600 other school districts in New Jersey are using this exact policy, why would we deviate from it? Why would we change it, customize it, do anything to it? Because when we do, whatever obscenity clause or thing that you want to add in there, we are now inviting all those groups that are First Amendment right groups who have unlimited funds to fight us on this. And in my mind, I would rather have our dollars be used for education purposes than legal purposes. There's no point in picking a fight with these groups. We have a sound policy that was recommended to us by attorneys. Hey, if you pass this policy, good chance you will not be sued. why would we say, oh, you know what, let's deliberate on that and discuss and figure out how we're gonna make it right for us? In my mind, I don't feel there needs to be changes to it. I think it's ready to go as is. Other school districts, I've looked online, have already passed it for first read. It's moving along, like people are moving this along because it's not worth the fight. I mean, when it's a policy that is recommended, sure, we can put things in there that we feel reflects our community. When it's a mandated policy like this, and this is the reason, so someone had asked me, but there wasn't a lot of discussion in committee. There never is. When it's a mandated policy, we move it along because that is the least risky move to do. So I feel like it should have been on the agenda tonight. The public should be able to see what it is we're talking about. Nobody has no idea. They haven't seen it. It should be out there for the public to see. We should have been discussing it in public tonight for first read. So I'm just frustrated with the whole process. I don't know why we have committees if we're gonna override it and just pull things off anyway. I mean, that's something I'm gonna talk about board goals later. Like, respect us doing our vetting and what we do.
So a couple of things. We have a policy committee. If we're just gonna take, copy and paste what stress estimate gives us and not think about our community and our school district that does differ from different communities in the state of New Jersey, then we are not doing what our role is as board members. So that is how I feel about that. I also pointed out when it came to policy 2530, the Flem Rare district, they also added to their policy. They did not copy and paste. They did what worked for them, and I shared that with the committee. I don't know if I shared it with the full board, but that was there. So I disagree, and I think we are doing our students a huge disservice if all we are doing is copying and pasting a policy.
So I'm just gonna,
I'm a bit frustrated myself too, because I think we're sitting here and there's the 1,000-pound gorilla sitting in here and nobody wants to talk about it. And if somebody wants to read what's in those books so that people could listen to it, I think that you would tend to say that our children's having safety for our children and what they read is more important than being afraid of litigation. So there has to be a time where you stand up for what you think is right and not let our goals and objectives be dictated by attorneys, litigators, and First Amendment people. If you know what the right thing to do is, you just do it, let the chips fall where they may. And some people may agree with that and some people may not. Take it to a vote.
This policy is mandated, however, districts do have discretion with it as long as it doesn't interfere with the minimum requirements of it. So while this is a mandated policy and Strauss did provide us with one, we are allowed to make additions to it and it's actually our responsibility to do so. So that's how I feel. And I felt we were split in committee, that two of us were okay with adding to it and two of us were not. And that's why I asked for it to go to a board discussion. And as I was going through the minutes, I realized we were breaking kind of from our normal process of revising the policy, making our additions to it, and then bringing it to first read. And I felt like it was rushed to first read, and that was breaking our process in committee. So that's what I came from. And I also didn't get a response when I sent my email from you or anyone else. It ended up being a back and forth between Dr. Hart and myself. So I feel strongly I do have the passage that I read. If anyone does want to hear it, but we do have the right to add this to the policy.
Okay, so I'm just going to mention this as well, in that one of the reasons when Dr. Hart and I met and why it got pulled from the agenda, it's kind of similar to the homework policy, that there might be changes that come out and it might not be ready. As you can see, it may not have been passed first read tonight based on some of the comments. So from our perspective, is that it should go back to committee, let the committee iron this out. Do we put an obscenity clause in it? Do we not put an obscenity clause? Do we modify the regulations with the librarian's input? Don't we modify the regulations? I looked at 9130. One of the things I noticed that the committee that's formed in 9130s different than the committee that's formed in 2535. They should have the same, in my mind, criteria of who's on the committee. The same criteria. You're reviewing the books. So it was just premature, and we kind of rushed a little because December 9th day is the day Freedom to Read Act goes live. So we wanted to go through. So last time when Dr. Hart and I met, we're like, maybe it's not ready for a first read yet because there's so many open questions. So that's the approach we took. So I don't know if Dr. Hart wants to add on to that.
No, that's accurate. Ellen wrote some comments. We didn't hear from the committee. We exchanged back and forth. I got the impression that there may not be support for the policy on first read. I called David. We had a conversation about it, and this is where we ended up. My understanding is that I have some work to do in getting this flow chart and talking with the librarians, bringing it back to committee. I don't know if there will be any recommendations to customize or change the policy, but I know that there was work that I needed to do on the administrative end to ensure that the board had a clear picture. That's at least what I understood. Just make sure that the board has a clear picture about how materials are curated. And if that satisfies the inquiry from the board, I can do that. And we can talk about that in committee.
This is just really sending it back to committee to complete the work that needs to be done. No changes to the policy are being recommended, no. It just has to go back to the committee. At that point, we have a policy committee. Let's let the policy committee do their work. So that's kind of where we're going with this. That's why it's not on the agenda. And one of Paul, I have for board. Sherry's first.
I don't want to put you on the spot, Ellen, but if you did want to read an excerpt, that would help me understand whether we should have some sort of extra clause in the policy, and probably beneficial to the full board. But if we don't feel comfortable, it's okay.
It's okay. We have to make a distinction about the two different things that we're talking about. And I want the board to understand whatever you're going to read, and it's up to you, Ellen, if you want to read it, it's completely up to you. What is in the library is in the library. There is a process for removal. And tell me if I'm misunderstanding this, please. Talking about adopting the policy and how things get into the library is a different conversation. I just want to know what we're going to achieve by hearing an excerpt from a book that may or may not exist. If we hear the excerpt and we decide the book needs to be removed, someone has to go through that process. And I don't know if there's a purpose to hearing that, or should we maintain the focus of our conversation on how the books get curated in the library to begin with? I think they're two different things. And I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know how one relates necessarily to the other. There's a process for removal, but there's also now we're talking about a process for procurement. The removal process cannot be changed. That's now in statute, and that's what's in our policy. The curation process is the part that the collaboration piece, I think that was mentioned in the policy. So if there's a goal, Ellen, it's really completely up to you, but if there's a goal in hearing this, let's identify the goal. But if the goal is for us to send it back to the policy committee to make sure that we have a clear process of how books get into the library, that's a different conversation. And I don't know if what you're about to read achieves that goal.
Well, and I understand what you're saying, but for me, the goal would be to make sure that in the future, we don't have books like this end up in the library. So I think it is important. I mean, I understand that we would have to go through a process of removal, but I'm looking towards the future. If we're going to put this policy in place, it probably needs to have some added language for any future books that could potentially end up in the library and in our students' hands. That's where I'm coming from.
And I think that what you're talking about is a criteria. And I think that I can't answer the question about the criteria until I talk to the professionals who are the ones that are trained to decide what the criteria is to put those books in the library. That's all. There are professionals that I believe this board and the administration need to empower to make really good decisions for our kids. And I believe in those certificated professionals. I don't know if we can talk about criteria which I think is the genesis of this conversation, until I understand the genesis of that empowerment and how we can best give our professionals the tools that they need to make those decisions for children. I want to give them those tools. That's my goal.
I just wanted to say I disagree with that. I think that this is exactly what our job is. Our job here is to protect these kids. And if there's something in there that's not inappropriate, we should kind of know what's in it. I want to know what's in it. Like, I'm not sure. I can kind of guess from other past books that I've read out there on the internet floating around. But if these books are here, the audience should know, our public should know, and we should do something about it.
I'd just like to add, Dr. Hart, I appreciate the clarity that you were just bringing to us, which is what is the goal? It's a forward-looking goal and the process that you want to use around empowering the educators to help us identify the criteria. I think that's a really pragmatic way to approach it. I just wanted to share that I support that approach.
I guess the other part to it is what, if there are already books in there that some may deem age inappropriate with sexually explicit content in it. So will there be a process for, I don't know who determines maturity level. I don't know who determines age appropriateness for which students get to read which books, or how, if there is a book geared toward 8th grade, how our 6th graders wouldn't be able to sit in the library and read it without the parent knowing. And I think that's the difference between a school library and a public library, is that typically in a public library, a parent is with the child, they brought the child there for the book selection process, where in the library, the parent isn't with them. And there are some books that are sensitive in nature. They discuss rape, they discuss sexual activity in descriptive ways. So that's where if we say we won't allow sexually explicit material to come into the library, then that relieves that whole controversy and would minimize book challenges and take that whole thing away. And I understand that there may be 1 or 2 sentences in a book for artistic license or whatever that, there could be a justification for having it. And that's not really what I'm talking about. It's books like the one that I shared that I just feel are not, that a child should not read that book alone without having a parent aware to be able to have discussions with them and help them through reading that book.
You might be going the same place you are. I was just going to comment, while this is an important discussion, I don't know if this is the right venue for it. And I was going to ask you, David, should we redirect? Because I think we have clarity that it's not on the agenda now for voting, that there's going to be more discussion in the committee. Might we get back to our agenda so that we're not here till midnight?
The problem is that the committee is split. So
what is the process when there is a split committee? Is there a decision
board
that is,
discussion, I think.
but is there a decision that's needed tonight?
No, just sharing information and getting the full board's input.
And then a decision gets made where? Here?
It would go back to committee, and then
So what's gonna happen is we've had full board discussion here, right? This is why it's not being voted on, why Dr. Hart and I both decided not to put it on the agenda, because it needs more discussion. It's not ready for first draft, because there is a lot of open items on it. For example, do we modify 2535 regulation on how books get in on the curation, which seems to be what a lot of discussions on, right? So that is something that's just gonna take more time, so it has to go back to the committee. So let's let the committee do their work, they'll go back to it, maybe it'll get resolved, maybe they'll come up with an answer, or if not, the next time we meet, we can have another board discussion on it. But it does have to come out of committee, let them do their work, let Dr. Hart do his homework with the librarian and his other staff, and see what needs to be done. So we'll do our process, the committee will move forward. And like I said, it's very similar to the homework policy we talked about. It came up for first read. It may not have been ready for first read because there's some discussion on it. So we'll send it back to committee. Committee will either modify sentence 8, keep sentence 8, keep it as is. That's what the committee's meant to do. So that's all I think is going to happen. Michelle's going to go back to committee.
I just want to quickly retract asking you to read a passage. Didn't mean to make you uncomfortable. It's okay.
Okay. Any other discussions?
I would like to read a short passage from the policy. It's 1E. Just to point out, this might help to acknowledge that a school library media specialist is professionally trained to curate and develop the school library collection, provide students with access to the widest array of developmentally appropriate library material available to schools. So there is a statement in there about developmentally appropriate. I'm not sure how much I can go into about the types of reading material complaints that we've had, but they are so broad that I can't imagine that from parent to parent that we even agree on what is the content that should be excluded. And I think developmentally appropriate gives us that broad range of discretion to make sure it's age appropriate material coming in. But I am very interested in hearing what the curation process is that our highly qualified, highly trained, highly educated media specialists and librarians follow.
I do want to mention, Pam, too, that the other thing that we have to realize is that we have advanced level readers in the middle school, right? 6th, 7th, 8th grade students may be reading at a level that's in 10th, 11th, 12th grade level. And it's our obligation to ensure that they have access to materials that are advanced in nature in terms of their literacy. And sometimes books that are advanced in readership are also advanced in content. And I think that there's a balance there that we have to find as well. Like, developmentally appropriate is a great term, and I really like it and I apply it, but developmental appropriateness has a wide gradation. And I think that it's just, we want to give access to a wide array of materials so that kids could be appropriately challenged when they need to be. So, but thank you, I appreciate it. I don't have anything else to add.
I'm just gonna add one more thing, is whatever policy, in my opinion, whatever policy that was in place, whatever policy that was used to allow the books that are in there right now, I think was very insufficient. And that's where I think you need to go back and make sure that stuff don't go back in there again. That's just one board member's opinion, and I'm not promoting that you read that because I wouldn't put you on the spot. But if you did read it, I think you get a consensus on what I'm alluding to.
Yeah, and that's where the curation comes in and how we get books in. There's a big difference with once a book's in, as Dr. Hart said, versus once it's in there, getting it out versus not having it in the beginning, which is the passage that you read from 2545.
But I don't have a lot of faith in a lot of professionals that I'm going to say, we want to talk about developmentally appropriate material. There could be a book that has a chapter that you could rip the pages out and the rest of it would be developmentally appropriate. But to leave that chapter in and with that sexually explicit material, I've seen some of the material. I didn't see the rest of the book, but I didn't really need to see anymore. And if there's a professional that said that's appropriate for K to 8, I just question their credentials.
Okay, so I'm going to take Michelle's advice and bring this to a close and bring it to a vote. That being said, I'm just going to reiterate the motion, so it's been about half an hour, so people know what we're voting on. It was the policies. We had 601 through 602. We had 4 policies that were for second read, I believe, and it was 6 policies that were first read. That being said, can I get a roll call vote?
Mrs. Cassidy.
I'm going to vote no on policy 2330, yes on the remainder.
Mrs. Fiore.
No on policy 2330, yes on everything else.
Mr. Lopes.
Yes on 6.01, yes 6.02, except for 2330, bring back to ed tech for revision.
Mrs. Menzer.
No for policy 2330 and 6.02, yes to everything else.
Mr. Pieros,
No on 20 through 30, yes on everything else.
Mrs. Rad,
Same thing, 23, 30, no, yes.
Mrs. Ryan,
Yes.
Mrs. DePinto,
Yes.
Mr. Rizzo.
Yes.
Everything passes except for 2330.
All right. Next item is unfinished business. We have 3 items actually on that. It is the tentative board meeting date, so Dr. Hart, I will review that section if you like.
There's a document in the agenda which are tentative board meeting dates for calendar year 2026, not necessarily the school year, so it would be the rest of this calendar year 26. And then next fall, please take a look at it, review it. No significant changes. We generally stick to the second Tuesday of the month. January 6th is our reorg meeting, and then January 5th, 27. I can't believe we're talking about 2027, but January 5th, 2027 is reorg for next year. If anybody has any comments, suggestions, anything like that, I think that they're pretty typical dates. This will be on for the reorg agenda. So if you're okay with it, we're just going to move it forward for the agenda in January. But if there is a huge conflict that you notice, same night as a 100 Central concert or back to school night or something like that, please just let me know so we can make that revision. But otherwise, this will likely move forward. This is just a draft for now. And then mark your calendars.
Thank you. All right, the next item is board goals. So we met a few months ago, we had board goals. We voted on them. And one of the things that Mary Ann from NJSBA, who spoke earlier, mentioned is that a lot of boards do not actually review board goals or look at them until self-evaluation in June. So we decided to do something a little differently and actually review our board goals on a periodic basis. That being said, was my view that unless somebody takes ownership of something, nothing gets done. So I asked Pam and Ellen to work together to take ownership of the board goals so that we actually can review them. And I also asked for them to put up a draft, because the other thing is when you come to a public meeting, this is not something you can just dynamically create on the fly in public. So I asked them to go back and think about it, look at our board goals, and come up with what they thought our status is. So they did that. So I am going to turn this over to both Pam and Ellen now for them to lead this. And normally I moderate the meeting, but I'll let you guys moderate the next however long this takes.
Do you want to split it or do you want to take yours?
Yeah, we can
Split
split
it
it,
is. and then-
but I think if anybody has more that they want to add to it, that's what we're definitely hoping to gather all of your, you're like, even longer. He wants to.
Sure. So our first goal was the board will ensure academic achievement is a central focus in decision-making by creating and implementing systems and frameworks that prioritize academic success. The board will work with the administration to prioritize teacher retention training and recruitment to support achieving academic success. Our December update is that the Ed Tech Committee discussed the NJSLA results and comparative data with district leadership. The committee then discussed with Dr. Hart ways to address student performance issues across the district with emphasis on 3rd grade and middle school. Teacher retention to be prioritized at all times as staff changes have impacts on curriculum fidelity and important consistency for our learners. The Personnel Committee is informed of staffing updates and reported out that there have been no staffing changes at RMS, Hollenbrook School, and Three Bridges School. And the one resignation at White House School is covered with a temporary replacement while the search for full replacement continues. And our short-term coverages are stable. The AI Working Committee has met and is working on data collection, and a new professional development website has been created and is in use for an improved experience and better tracking. Our action steps for moving forward throughout the year is to monitor key academic priorities, indicators, and metrics, review current staffing challenges with administration, identify board level actions, funding policy adjustments, etc. support training and professional development by reviewing progress in the year and year end and how they tie to academic goals. Our next goal was the board will work with the administration to upgrade and refine safety and security measures to ensure student and staff safety and continue to maintain a positive school climate for all students to thrive in. The December update is that Mr. Belsky shared his quarterly update with the Ed Tech Committee. Wireless access points are updated at RMS and Hollenbrook School. This enhances network-based security measures. Updates to software devices and network servers are complete or in process to help protect from vulnerabilities. Transportation routes have been discussed and the administration is currently reviewing the data for a report to the Finance Committee. A school climate survey is planned for this year to gather insight into the learning environment and further academic achievement. And our action steps through the year are support capital investments in security systems facilities and emergency communication schools, receive regular updates from administration on climate surveys, discipline trends and programs, and to support initiatives that reinforce positive student and staff culture.
Okay, we'll move on to governance protocols. The board goal was the board will conduct a comprehensive review of existing committee protocols and communications across committees and implement recommended actions. The board will update the policy guide and implement a schedule for reviewing policies. Our December update is that the board committees have improved communication by sharing the meeting agendas ahead of time and sharing out presentations. This goal can be improved upon and needs further discussion. The policy committee continues to work through the new tracking document and have implemented new tools from Strauss Esme and NJSBA for efficiency and bringing the manual up to date. Our proposed action steps are to assess current committee structure, communication flow, and meeting practices, to gather input from committee chairs to update goal tracking sheet, implement recommended governance improvements, update and maintain the policy guide, and establish a rolling schedule for policy review, for example, one section per quarter. Our last goal was around the referendum and strategic plan. The board goal is that we will collaborate with the administration to launch enhanced communications to inform community members of the referendum. The board will empower the finance committee with the administration to create a capital project plan regardless of the referendum outcome. The board will facilitate the implementation of the strategic planning process in coordination with the administration. And our update this month is the board has committed to transparency as the referendum projects get underway. The finance committee has its next meeting in December to work on a capital project plan. Proposals from firms to assist with developing a strategic plan are under consideration. And the NJSBA reps and Judith Wilson will present to the full board to help with that decision. Our action steps are that we will collaborate with administration to develop clear messaging for the community. We will review plan options and improve a clear path forward. We will support the new strategic planning process. We will monitor progress at key milestones, and we will adopt the final strategic plan and ensure alignment with board goals. Are there any observations, additions?
I had a few comments, maybe things just to consider. Under the governance goal, I just wanted to point out the sharing of agendas is an initiative we started last year, like a full year ago, that, I'm fine trying to take credit for it in this current year, but I feel like that's something that was already implemented last year, so I don't know if it needs to be repeated. But a suggestion I had was to look at the board self-assessment, see if there was anything in there that as a board we could potentially work on. We already have that data from the spring that it would be interesting to see. So the other thing for committee protocols, we also worked on that last year, which was probably more in the onboarding committee. We had like committee protocols or onboarding. So some of that is already done, that work's already been done also, but just reminders about certain things, about, attending committee meetings and some of that stuff. I feel like we need to circle back to some of those protocols, and we have some policies written about, like, if you are not able to attend a committee meeting, you're supposed to contact the chair, there's different things. So I feel like something like that could be included in governance protocols. And then also communicating with chair of a committee, CCing the board president and the superintendent on communications, like maybe just look at some protocols around that also in terms of proper communication. For referendum, There's only one action step that talks about communication. I feel like we could expand upon that if it's maybe like resources that we need to put towards. We had a communication consultant for passing the referendum. I don't know if that's going to continue for reporting out to the community in terms of what projects are happening, but maybe that's something we could look at as a board to, we talk about being transparent about the projects, but really it's more like the overall success and how the projects are rolling out, and how we're communicating that out to the public. And the referendum website, I don't think is included on there, but that could be one of the action. It's already been, I guess, part of the December update. And then the last thought I had was for referendum that potentially as a board, we should think about having a standing agenda item related to the referendum, so that each meeting we just give a progress report on projects and what's up next and all that. So those are my suggestions.
Thanks, Bill. So I'm gonna make a couple comments as well on the referendum portion. One is, I know on the finance committee, on December 17th, a lot of what you mentioned, Beth, is what we're gonna talk about. But I think a large how we do the referendum, what the process are. I know Dr. Hart and I talked about like a timeline for folks when this has to happen and so on, one project. So we're gonna try and give as much information as possible. And it's gonna be a standing item on every finance committee. So because it's gonna be a standing item on every finance committee, it's gonna make it into the board and into the readouts. The website, I know we're gonna be modifying it for transparency. So it's good news, we just passed, but a lot of things you brought up, Beth. I think that hopefully the next finance committee meeting, we'll be able to work out a lot of the logistics. I think a large part of it's gonna be dedicated to that. So that's the one comment I have.
And a question for the governance goals, is that going to live in the policy committee? So like there'll also be, I'm just trying to, like, who's going to own that? I know that Mrs. Cassidy and Mr. Pinto are reporting on it, but like which board member, is there the governance goals? Is there a point person for that? Like the referendum strategic plan is mostly finance. Like where is that governance going to live?
The whole board, I would think.
I may have context. I think maybe Beth's question in the past, this is just past practice. We would talk, you and I would talk, and then a goal would be assigned to a committee just to track. I think, Beth, that's what you're getting at. So in past years, like referendum obviously falls under finance. Governance may fall under policy. I think we also talked about like academic achievement, that's ed tech, right? So what Jason and I can do is, every 2 months or so put, the goal on the committee agenda if we want to. Am I interpreting your thought correctly, Beth? If we want, it's just a thought. And governance, I guess the question is, where should that live?
I thought we had decided it would be policy and communications.
I thought so too, but that was maybe last year. I think we did that, yeah.
Okay. First one, thank you for putting together this very comprehensive, a lot of work actually. Any other comments?
For the academic achievement, is there a way to monitor like the social emotional learning? Is that like our monitor, something we monitor?
I can answer that question. I can tell you that one of the administrators in the district has been working with a group of teachers last year piloting a assessment tool that monitors SEL. And this year it's being implemented more fully, I want to say grades K through 5. So we'll get some SEL data. It's brand new, it's hot off the press, it's one of the administrative goals, but we have the very beginnings of having some preliminary data tracking SEL. So that's something I can bring to the EdTech committee board.
And also, just reminds me of the conversation I had about a few weeks ago, is that one of the items we had when we did the presentation months ago, 2 months ago, whenever we did the NJLA scores, there's so many moving parts when the scores happen, what they are, who gets tested, when, and so on. So I asked Dr. Hart at one of the upcoming meetings, so probably I think he said February, do a presentation on how we do testing, what the testing is, when they get measured, what's a baseline versus mid-year versus end of year growth and so on, just so that the board knows So that's coming up as well too, so just the board and the public knows how we test our students. Any other? Okay, we will move on to the Green Committee. Okay.
The Green Committee met last week, December 2nd. We reviewed the strategic focus areas for 25-26 school year. Mr. Bohm gave us a referendum update. The committee thanked Dr. Hart, and thanked Mr. Bohm and his staff for all of their hard work on the referendum. We were celebrating that it passed. The website is transitioning to status tracking for the referendum and the communication format for referendum projects. I think Mr. Bowen was just updating the committee on how that can be communicated out. The construction for referendum projects will start in summer of '26. The next item we discussed was a 5-year strategic plan, and that the vendors would be presenting tonight's meeting, and Green Committee members were invited along with other community stakeholders to participate in the strategic planning process and attend those sessions. We discussed outdoor spaces. Dr. DeRosa held a walk and roll to school program this fall. This was a new partnership with Go Hunterdon and the Reddington Police Department, and students, staff, parents were able to walk and roll to school for the day, which seemed like a really great activity. Ms. Freeman discussed the Trees for Schools grant from Sustainable Jersey. It's a $39,000 grant that the district received. It's for tree plantings. Ms. Freeman gave an update on the process. They're finalizing budget right now. There are many, many partners who are working with her to get this project completed. Students are invited to many, she went over the whole list. It was very impressive. Invited to New Jersey Audubon to attend the Monmouth University Climate Summit. They have partnerships with Raritan Headwaters to be watershed ambassadors. They're volunteering for the spring tree planting. I forget how many hundreds of trees it was. I can't remember if it came out of that meeting or the meeting prior, but an enormous planting. Alongside the 8th graders in the Viking Visionaries program will be planting. The Eco Ambassador students will be attending a workshop with Hunterdon Central Sustainable Agriculture students. And the project local resident and arborist Neil Hendrickson is heavily involved in helping Ms. Freeman to plan this project. More details to come. There was a wellness grant that the district received from our health insurance company, $22,500 for healthy eating habits for staff members. This was a very successful program during the Fall Professional Development Day, so the district will be continuing it in the spring. There will be incentives for staff members who participate, and the district is looking for additional grants for next year. In terms of referendum communications, Mr. Bohm updated the committee that there will be a prioritization of outdoor spaces and wellness projects with the first wave of referendum projects. The next item we discussed was a solar project. Mr. Bohm reported that financing has fallen through for the second time. Solect Energy is the latest company to come prepare a quote on the financing of the project that was approved and awarded to construction vendor Easy Energy. If financing falls through for a third time, Hess said that they would try to pick up the project at the last minute. In order to be eligible for the federal solar incentives, the project would need to be 5% complete by July 5th. For that to happen, the financing and ordering of materials will need to be approved by the board at the end of January, that's for the financing, and early March for materials. When asked why the project financing has fallen through, Mr. Bohm said our solar project is on a smaller scale from many that these companies are doing. The market has changed significantly since we first began this project 2 years ago, and we have rigid parameters that have to be met, such as installation location and access to property during school hours. Finally, we talked about the biodiversity audit and the school grounds recommendations. This was a goal that was created based on suggestions from Green Committee members to identify plant species on one or more school properties and create a plan for tree plantings and reduced mowing. The committee will continue to develop this idea in future meetings. Unfinished business, the NJSBA convention down in Atlantic City. There was a Sustainable Jersey recognition ceremony luncheon. It was a very nice event that staff, board members, and administrators attended. That was for our silver certification. Mr. Becker was at the meeting, and he's a representative of the Reddington Township Environmental Commission. Reddington Township also received silver certification from Sustainable Jersey. The $4,000 stipend, Mr. Bohm invited the committee to submit suggestions for projects that would fall under the $4,000 budget line item for green initiatives. The Reddington Township Well Testing Program, Mr. Hendrickson and Mrs. Orlandi talked about the well testing program, which is a partnership between Raritan Headwaters and Reddington Township, and the need to increase public awareness, and committee members had different ideas on how to raise awareness. And lastly, Mr. Becker talked about the property that abuts the backside of Three Bridges. It's called Forest Hill, and he has RVCC students helping to design that project, and it would be a walking trail. It needs some maintenance and signage, and it could be utilized by TBS students, which is very exciting. And then our next Green Committee meeting is Tuesday, March 3rd.
Thank you, Beth. I do have one comment I was trying to mention. One of the things that's kind of important that Beth brought up is the financing for the solar. And if the financing doesn't falls through and we need to go to the third or to the fourth, board action is going to be needed, and the deadlines begin in February, end of January. So things may go onto the finance committee agenda. We might have to do a quick vote on one of our future agendas, either be the January 20th meeting if it goes to that. So just being able to look at that, the solar financing is something that may be on our radar. We're assuming we're doing finance committee or on the January 20th meeting. Any other comments? Okay. Next item is comments open to the public.
Is there any
If you
business?
would like to speak.
New business?
Oh, I'm sorry, new business from the board. I skipped that one. All right, any new business from the board? And that's-
Hi, sorry, I'll go through it quickly. Garden State Coalition of Schools, I failed to give you the update from October 15th. We met on transportation costs was the topic. There were a number of suggestions which I can provide to the Finance Committee, none of which were, whole ones to solve all of our transportation problems, but there are some recommendations there on how to cut costs. At the November 19th meeting, there was a presentation about wellness in your school district and on your school boards, to be mindful of the wellness of both our students, our staff, the administration, and the school board as well. Not surprisingly, the key behaviors to protect health are sleep, nutrition, and movement. So again, no big surprises in either of those meetings, but I did want to share with you.
Thank you. Okay, before I move on, any other new business for the board? Okay. Now we'll be open to the public.
There's comments on there.
Okay, so I guess we'll do in person first, and then we'll do live comments. So if you have, if you'd like to speak, please state your name and county you're from, 3 minutes, and it can be any items on or off the agenda.
My name is Stephanie Singer. I work in Reddington Middle School. I am their library media specialist. I think it's always important that everyone have a face to the meeting or position that is going to be referenced in the many things that we talk about. I had no intention of speaking. However, the idea of credentials was brought up, and I just wanted to make sure that everyone was aware of mine. I graduated from Rutgers University, Phi Beta Kappa, with a double major in communication and Spanish. That included coursework at the University of Salamanca in Spain, where I got grades of sobresaliente in 2 classes. I went on to a short, very successful career in public relations, where if I stayed in it, I would have been making 6 figures and the senior vice president of one of the largest PR firms in the state. Instead, I followed my passion, helping and reading. So, I switched gears, got my master's degree in library and information science from Rutgers University. I came here after 2 years working part-time with private school, because I thought a pension would be a good thing. And here on January 3rd, I believe, I will celebrate my 15 years here that I have loved, all but for a couple months. I have been given 2 awards. I most recently was honored with the Governor's Educator of the Year Award as a paraprofessional, educational services professional. And in 2016, I was awarded Outstanding Library Media Specialist for the state of New Jersey. I have 15 years experience in working with many different kinds of students, all different kinds of students. I have had training over the course of 15 years. I have had professional development for 15 years. I have also spoken about my profession at conferences in Hawaii, Georgia, Tennessee, and throughout New Jersey. My expertise is valued by many people in my profession. And I most recently was a stop on an open library store for others to learn about how I'm able to do my job. In addition to that, I am the mother of 2 amazing young women who are intelligent, funny, engaging, and brilliant. I'm very proud of them. Those are some of my qualifications and accomplishments. Thank you.
Anyone else in the room?
Renee Brown, I live in Brighton. I want to start by saying if you give 100 parents 100 different books, they are all going to differ in what they find appropriate or inappropriate for their children and for other people's children. We all want an environment that reflects our values of responsibility, transparency, and respect for families. And the New Jersey Freedom to Read Act does just that. This legislation does not take the decision-making away from parents or the community. In fact, it reinforces a clear, consistent process for how books and instructional material are reviewed, a process that relies on the professional judgment of certified educators and librarians. Thank you. Importantly, nothing in the Freedom to Read Act prevents parents from guiding what their own children read. Readington families retain the ability to opt out of library materials or classroom texts they feel are not right for their child. Parental involvement is and should remain a cornerstone of our schools. Parents should make the choice for their children, not for everyone else's. This legislation helps ensure schools remain focused on preparing students for the real world, where they will encounter different viewpoints, engage thoughtfully with information, and learn to make informed decisions. And for these reasons, I think the Reddington Township Board of Education should support the New Jersey Freedom to Read Act. Book choice belongs in the hands of teachers, librarians, and parents, not the school board and not other parents. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else in the room would like to speak?
Is that open for discussion? I thought that you did not have that library issue on the agenda.
It's right now, this is anything open on the agenda or off the
Oh,
agenda,
this is-
so you can speak.
Please pass that down. Tom Curtis, White House Station. So what I'm handing out basically is a page from the Federal Communications Commission. And I'm kind of surprised that we wouldn't have at least the standard that we have for public radio and TV for a middle school library. So what this has to do with this particular page is obscene, indecent, and profane broadcasts. Federal law prohibits obscene, indecent, and profane content from being broadcast on radio or TV. That may seem clear enough, but determining what obscene, indecent, and profane mean can be difficult depending on who you talk to. In the Supreme Court's 1964 landmark case on obscenity and pornography, Justice Potter Stewart famously wrote, "I know it when I see it." That case still influences FCC rules today, and complaints from the public about broadcasting objectionable content drive the enforcement of those rules. In other words, if you know it when you see it and find it objectionable, you can tell the FCC and ask us to check into it. Deciding what obscene, indecent, or profane, each type of content has a distinct definition. Obscene content does not have protection by the First Amendment. For content to be ruled obscene, it must meet a three-pronged test established by the Supreme Court. It must appeal to an average person's prurient interest, depict or describe sexual conduct in a patently offensive way, and taken as a whole lack serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value. Indecent content portrays sexual or excretory organs or activities in a way that is patently offensive, but does not meet the three-pronged test for obscenity. Profane content includes grossly offensive language that is considered a public nuisance. Factors in determining how FCC rules apply include the specific nature of the content, the time of day it was broadcast, and the context in which the broadcast took place. Broadcasting obscene content is prohibited by law at all times of day. Indecent and profane content are prohibited on broadcast TV and radio between 6 a.m. and 10 p.m. when there is a reasonable risk that children may be in the audience. Okay, so that's the federal communications law. And I've read a couple of the books. And it certainly rises to indecent content and certainly profane content. I don't believe that it meets the three-pronged test. However, I just find it absurd that for a middle school library, we would not have a defined a definition of what is considered age appropriate. It just seems absurd to me. So that's all I had to say. And again, there's a link at the bottom where you can actually go to the FCC site. So I just don't understand why we would have that defined appropriateness for our public radio and TV, but not for our middle school library. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else from the audience?
Hi, I'm Marissa Hettenbach. I'm a parent. This is my first board meeting here, so it was quite interesting. So the homework policy, I'm not sure if I understand that correctly. So this reading practice log that the kids are using, is that something the teachers fill out, the students fill out themselves? Are parents requesting that? How was that brought about? What is done with the information that's collected on it? And it's coming back, and I'm hearing you talk about data, and I was just curious what data was being collected and the purpose behind it. I would assume parents could ask their kids what they're reading, they could ask the teacher. I have a little one, so I have 3 bridges, so I'm not even at the middle school level yet, which it seems like a lot of the discussion was geared toward tonight. But how many people are complaining about books and the content? Is there, I know you can't answer me, but we're talking about, we're going to handle collection development for the libraries, right? Who is going to curate it? When you talk about it, you keep saying we. Wouldn't it be the person who has a master's degree in library science that would be handling that? Wouldn't they be the person who is qualified and highly trained in order to do that? It seems like there's a lot of talk going on, and we're making mountains out of molehills with things that don't need to be. It sounds like that policy is something that's pretty straightforward. And I'm just curious as to what the agenda behind it is, that we want to put criminal law, and then we're saying that neighboring districts who do not have a good reputation did that, and we should model that too. I moved my family from another district in Hunterdon County. I wanted to stay in the county. I did my research. Between the staffs, the teachers, the administration, this was the only place that I needed to go. And so now I have a first grader. And I don't want to be in a position again where my child is in a district where the Board of Ed makes bad choices. Let teachers teach, let administrators do their jobs. Make sure the finances are good. Make sure the kids are educated, please. There was a lot of back and forth tonight where people are not seeing eye to eye. And my general vibe, because I haven't been here before, so I don't know these faces, is that there's something else going on. People, I don't know if it's agendas or something, but something doesn't seem right. And it's right here in this policy. And I don't know why. Because there is nobody, not an educator, not a professional, who would put something in a kid's hand that they think is going to have some kind of catastrophic experience for them. Take their cell phones away. You want to look at research on brain development? I don't like the fact that my first grader has a Chromebook that he brings home to and from school every day and he reads on it. I want him to read a book. You know what I mean? So you have to look at it that way. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else?
Scott Orton. As trusted educators, you have a duty to protect our children. If the required policy that is allowed to be modified does not include language to protect our children or does not go far enough, it needs to be added. If you are worried about some hypothetical group possibly suing us because our approved policy differs even slightly from the recommended policy, and you are willing to sacrifice the safety of our children, you really need to be more concerned about being sued by parents when you allow them to be exposed to inappropriate sexual content. Adding a provision to ensure that we do not violate the relevant 2C law, as Raritan has, should not only protect our children, but also keep us from being sued by any group. Also, if committee members do not think that the board should be able to provide feedback or vote on their recommendation, as is their duty, I suggest those members not be on board committees such as this. I appreciate Dr. Hart's concern about making sure that readers of higher levels are not exposed to sexual content meant for older readers. Just because a child has the ability to comprehend the material does not mean they are ready to consume that material. To Mr. Pira's point, there absolutely has been inappropriate material distributed by this district. I'm hopeful that the reason for this is that it is near impossible for the professionals to read every single word of every material provided by this district. If they have reviewed and approved the following content I'm about to read, then I would agree with Mr. Pira's statement. In the pre-K classes were provided large alphabet banners promoting unhealthy foods with logos of Kit Kat, McDonald's, Ices, Domino's, Oreos, Reese's, Wendy's, and Starbucks. They were also promoting screen-centric platforms like YouTube, Netflix, and Xbox. Both unhealthy foods and screen-centric platforms are widely documented as detrimental to young children's physical, emotional, and cognitive development. When children see these brands celebrated as part of their learning environment, they internalize them as desirable and safe. It makes it very difficult for parents to be able to go to the store and say, no, you can't have those Oreos, when the kid thinks, oh, well, my school has it on there, it must be good, it must be safe, right? My third grade daughter was assigned a book that promotes behaviors such as excessive screen use, consuming short format videos, and self-recording and sharing. Basically, encouraging you to do TikTok videos and post them. This behavior is also widely documented as harmful to children's emotional, cognitive, and social development. My 11-year-old daughter has access to read the book Me, Earl, and the Dying Girl in her school library, which contains a lot of graphic sexual dialogue, including references to oral sex on minors and inappropriate adult behavior with minors, normalizing this behavior. One such passage includes, Papa Gaines never sat you down, son. One day you're gonna have to eat pussy. No, but he did teach me how to eat a butthole. A lot of other stuff like that in this book available to the 6th and 8th grade. To read in the library there. Because these materials are distributed by the school, children naturally assume that the content is endorsed and safe. This implicit authority makes it even more difficult for parents to teach caution and boundaries around unhealthy junk foods, screen time, digital and social media, and other risky or inappropriate behaviors. The current policy framework does not require a review of thematic content for developmental safety, or behavioral influence. Without such safeguards, instructional materials may inadvertently normalize activities that conflict with child well-being, even when the academic purpose is sound. I'm formally requesting that the district revise its instructional material selection and review policies to include explicit wording that ensures materials do not promote inappropriate, unhealthy, or unsafe activities. Content is evaluated not only for academic value, but also for developmental safety and well-being. Review processes consider behavioral influence alongside literary and curricular alignment.
Hello, members of the board. My name is Kathleen Tanis, and I live in Three Bridges. And I remember being in high school and reading 1984 and Handmaid's Tale. I remember being in middle school reading Catcher in the Rye and Fahrenheit 451. And one of the things that all of these books have in common is that they've all been banned and they've all been considered unfit for young people. They are part of the canon, they're well respected. Everyone has probably read them for generations. And what they did for me is that they created a reader. They created a reader out of me, they've created readers out of generations of students, all of which looked at Holden Caulfield and what he was saying and his adventures in New York City and thought, here's a kid that reminds me of me, who allows me to understand the world, who allows me to process the feelings that I am having and connects with me in some way. Maybe it's not Holden Caulfield, maybe it's another book. I was also a big fan of Judy Blume. And I remember sneaking in the library and trying to find every single book that she wrote so that I could go on the adventures that I saw in my book. Are all books perfect? Absolutely not. That's where parents come in. Parents speaking to their kids, talking to their teachers, talking to the librarians, finding out what their kids are reading. Like that is the job of a parent. Parents, in conjunction with teachers, in partnerships with librarians, create readers that think, that question, that connect, that have empathy. And I want to start by acknowledging that regardless of what our views are separately as people, as a community, we want the same thing for our kids. We want them to grow up smart. We want them to be thinkers. We want them to be respectful and to be respected. And we want them to be competitive, not just on a national scale, but on a global scale. And I think being a reader helps them do that. And I recognize that some parents are also uncomfortable with certain books or topics that arise in libraries or that their kids might have access to online. Remember, the internet is the wild, wild west. So your students are on the internet, your kids are on the internet, unfettered, but the books are the things, right? I ask you to really question that. So I want you to think about how our students in Reddington are performing, again, like with the rest of the state, and how well our schools have done in educating those students, and how we should allow them to continue to do the good work that they are doing. I will tell you that if you look at the states with the most banned books, and I will show you the lower rankings of national scorings in education. Google is free. Check it out. You ban books, and empires that fall, by the way, the first thing that happens before an empire falls is they burn libraries. We all know this. History has taught us. And was it Mark Twain who said History doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes. We get to see this all the time. They ban books, education drops, books come back, educations rise. The states that perform best do not ban books. And I love what you said about the FCC and having a regulation. But guess what? The FCC does not get to come to my house and tell me what I can listen to with my child. They do not get to make laws that govern my household and how I raise my children. I want my children to be exposed to a variety of literary works. I also remember visiting the museum and seeing the Venus de Milo for the first time. Oh, that glorious naked beauty. We should put her away. Let's not forget the very Bible that many of us live by. We should read some of those sections. We should ban that too. So I ask you, as you are thinking about these rules that you are making for other people's households and the educational goals that they have set for their children and the ideas that they are expressing to their child, what you are saying is that you want to reach into those households and make decisions for those parents and make decisions for librarians that are trained. I do not have a librarian degree. Who does? Thank you. Right? But I do have 2 master's degrees, one in education and one in curriculum and development. And I will tell you that I know literacy, I know reading, I know that engagement is half of the battle to be building good readers, right? Like if anybody is in literacy here now, you know that Scarsborough's rope says that engagement is one of the threads that leads to fluent reading. So when you take that engagement away, and that does not mean opening up the world to the child and say, read whatever you want. It means partnering with librarians and partnering with teachers and speaking to your child and making sure that they are reading the things that you find is good for them. Just like I will read with my child and tell them that they could read those things. And you might read with your child and tell them that they could read with those things. But you should not be in my house telling me what my child can read and what they can take out of the library. Is that all I had to say? So I urge the board to continue to support the great literacy program that we have here in Reddington Township. The literacy program that has given birth to a generation of really intelligent students, really intelligent kids, the same community where people have moved to access this great education, the same community that attracted me here from a Catholic school, by the way. And I'm like, I can put my kids in school here. So as much as people want to say, oh, I really value come to my church. I value all of the values that you do too, but do you know what I value? I value freedom of speech, and I value freedom of expression, and I value freedom of the press, and I value the freedom to read, for my child to become a critical thinker, that when they see something in a book that's not quite right, they're like, let's talk about that. Let me explain to you why that might not be a good thing. But I get to do that work with my child. The teacher gets to do that work with the students. The librarian gets to curate books. And our students continue to grow and be one of the best school districts in New Jersey, because we are not banning books and we are not down at number 48, 49, and 50 on the national ranking for education. Remember, look it up. Google is free. Thank you so much.
Okay, any other comments from the audience? No, we have one online, I think it's one person, right?
Yeah. From a Julie Laseringa 6939. Thank you. A book in contest many months ago was in the middle school library, so sending home a list of books at grades 9 through 12 levels will not address that. Me, Earl, and the Dying Girl was the book. Objectively, it had very obscene material and was deemed age appropriate to my disbelief. The key to the Freedom to Read Act here is developmentally appropriate. I fail to see how obscene material would ever be deemed that, so why the objection to adding this language? How any board member is arguing against protecting children from obscene material is quite disheartening. The reading log is not, and then a Carol Ann Sherwood said the reading log is not very user-friendly for parents. I know that I saw it in the beginning of the year, but I don't even know where to find it. Julie La Saracena Again, said advanced readers does not mean that they need to be reading repeated profanity and sexually explicit material. That is not what I consider education that my tax dollars are paying for. Education and safety needs to be the North Star. Books filled with sexual material and profanity does not follow the North Star of prioritizing education. And that's it for online.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm just going to reiterate our public comments policy that we do at each meeting. And then, thank you for your comments. From a board, we take them in, we have the option to address ones that we can as they come in, or we come take it back to committee or to address them offline. To my knowledge, there's a lot of comments, but I think there was only one question that really could be asked. I believe it was about like the reading log and how the reading log is utilized, where it came from. It came from a meeting that we had a few months ago. So maybe just on just the logistics of the reading log, did you want to maybe address that, Dr. Hart?
Yeah, Ms. Sittenbach, I can talk to you offline. Did I get your last name correct? Okay. Okay, just okay. I can talk to you offline, I can give you a call, but the genesis of the reading log was in order to create a connection between home and school and bring more awareness to parents of what their children were reading. You know, reading logs have been used in the district, but they go home now digitally. Children track what they're reading, they write it down, and then parents, it's on a Google form and parents have access to it to view it. In terms of the data that we're gonna collect, we just have not reassessed with our teachers how effective this has been to create that homeschool connection with reading, and that's what we're looking into. But we can have a conversation. If you have more questions, email me, we'll talk offline.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so I'm going to close public session now. I'm going to move to executive session. So I'm going to just read the motion. A motion to adopt the following resolution: resolve to adjourn to executive session in accordance with the Sunshine Law to discuss a personal matter and a legal matter for approximately 30 minutes, at which time the board expects to return to public session where action may be taken. Matters discussed will be made public if and when circumstances requiring confidentiality no longer exist. However, it is not presently known when such circumstances will exist. I will move it. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
And second, Mr. Bell.
Mrs. Cassidy,
Yes.
Mrs. Fury,
Yes.
Mr. Lopes,
Yes.
Mrs. Benso,
Yes.
Mr. Pieros.
Yes.
Mrs. Rad,
Yes.
Mrs. Ryan,
Yes.
Mrs. Pinto,
Yes.
Mr. Rizzo.
Yes. Okay, thank you, everybody, for attending.